Well, hey guys, welcome to the Remote No Pressure Podcast. This is Jeff Troutman. Very excited to be here this week. Very excited that you're joining us. I'm always excited. Every week when I get into the studio to record, something comes over me and I just love it. I love every single minute. I love talking to our guest. I love talking to you guys. I love getting email and feedback. I just love it. Everything's so great. I just have such a great time doing this podcast, and I'm so thankful that you found it. I'm so glad that you're listening, and I hope to God you're listening to this while you're on the river. This is the time of year to get out there, get out on the river, do your thing. Get out there, do some fishing. It's been an amazing summer so far here in Michigan, and we've done some great fishing. Big shout out to Brian Kosminski. Last week, my buddy accountant Phil and I actually, I think it was the week before last, but me and accountant Phil decided to go up to go fly fishing with Kaz to fish the Hex. And it's like 3.5 hours north of where we are after work. So why not go after work? So we drive up there and we have a great time. We pulled an all-nighter and we both worked the next day. So that was very interesting. That's another story. We'll have to have accountant Phil on because it's just such a great time. This week, we have an awesome, awesome story by a man who narrowly escaped death, right? And now he's a fly fishing guide down near Austin, Texas, in Wimberley, Texas, actually. And we went to the same college. We never met in college. I think he started a semester or left a semester before I did, but really good dude. Very interesting story. Welcome to the podcast. Let's light the fire. Well, today on the Remote No Pressure podcast, I'm very excited to have Paul Torrez on the horn with us. Thank you very much, Paul.
Yeah, glad to be here, man.
Now, usually when I call people, Paul, they're it's in the evening a lot of times, and they're trying to find a place with good reception and all that. And you just told me that you're camping out in your Jeep, hiding from your children. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'm sitting in the Jeep, making sure I'm behind the tinted windows and looking out for 3 kiddos running around the yard, making sure they don't see me. Otherwise, it's all over.
What kind of Jeep do you have?
It's a Jeep Wrangler, the 4-door.
Oh,
and so it's running all right now. The AC is working, so
yeah,
I'm happy in it.
And you have to have AC, air conditioning, because you live in Texas, correct?
Yes. So I live in the middle of the hill country of Texas, so we're kind of right in between. We're right in the middle of Austin and San Antonio, and so it's it can get hot and it can get really humid. And so the little town I live in is Wimberley, and so we've been in a heat streak maybe for 3 or 4 weeks where it's just been 90s, 100s, and it's brutal right now.
Wow. Now, what exactly do you do down there, Paul? What kind of work do you do?
So I'm just shoring up my first season out here in the hill country guiding full time out of a fly shop in Sattler or Canyon, Texas, that fishes the tailwater of the lower Guadalupe. And so it's one of the only trout rivers, really the only serious trout river in Texas.
That's amazing. Now, we've had several people on the podcast that's from Texas, and I know I'm from Texas, so there's obviously an affinity. Like, I really love Texans, and but in reality, it's not like I go searching for you guys. It seems like the fly fishing industry and the fly fishing movement is just really on fire down in Texas. Can you tell us a little bit about that fly fishing culture down there?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, first of all, we're Austin is we're basically right cousins with Austin, right? Mm-hmm. So, kind of super hipstered out, kind of on the edge of cool and the edge of really, there are a lot of cool things. Yeti's here, and Howler Brothers, and there's all these little kind of fly fishing outfitters and fashion. It's all here. And then we have this river, we have the coast, the Gulf Coast. It's really close to us as well. And so, you put that all together and it's just going crazy. And it's really cool. It's really fun. I mean, as goes for the river, I've never seen it so packed this past season. Like, it almost looked like traffic in LA at times. But I think it's just because it's peaking right now. I think it's gonna slow down a little bit. But social media, I mean, if you were to type in, Guadalupe River or bass fishing, fly fishing, and to hashtag it, it's nuts. There's so many people around here doing it, and a lot of young people. It's really cool. It's kind of exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting, and that's how it's been with the remote no pressure. As we talk to a lot of people coming up, I mean, not everyone wears the tweed jackets and so proper going out anymore. I mean, they're throwing streamers and wet flies and it's not just dry fly snobbery anymore. It's exciting. There's
Yeah,
a lot of life to it.
yeah. It is. It's really cool. I mean, especially. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just crazy how many people are into it, and once they get into it, especially, it's so beautiful, and they get their feet wet, and they're just loving our river. So it's just better for all of us down here, and so it's just these most of our rivers around the hill country are all like tubing rivers. So I don't know. We get what's the tube hatch once about May comes, which you can't fish anymore. And so, but it's funny because what's happening is people are fishing so much. My hope is that people will fish more than they tube, because so anyways, but it's kind of cool. It's really kind of fun and cool what's happening down here. And there's just so many waters to fish. I mean, we got one river to trout fish, but I mean, smallmouth, largemouth, I mean, the list goes on. Typical warm freshwater fishing, but I mean, there's so much of it. And so it's really cool for the area.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Guadalupe bass?
Yeah, I mean, Guadalupe bass is a local, native fish to our little rivers here. Like I'm in Wimberley, so I live on this river we call the Blanco. We have the San Marcos. There's just the Llano. There's rivers all around, the Colorado. And so it's a local, it's a native fish, and they're here. I mean, they were dying off, so the state is doing a lot to protect them and to get the fisheries healthy again. And I think they're really stocking up the Guadalupe and the Llano with them. They're trying to restart it.
They're beautiful fish. I've seen quite
They're
a few people catching them, and it's just kind of odd to see the way they look. They're really, really cool fish.
they are they're really cool, and like the smallmouth, they're great fighters. And if you get one, you're like, wow, look at this. It's a really cool little kind of notch on your belt, and especially here on the Blanco where I'm fishing every other day. So
Wow.
yeah, it's really cool to see them, and they're here, and so yeah.
Well, you said earlier, when we were talking that we've seen this huge influx and people really getting into fly fishing. Can you tell us how you got into fly fishing, Paul?
Sure. Yeah, I guess I grew up in Los Angeles in suburbs of LA, and so I was always wanting to fish, but never could. And so if I did travel with my parents outside of LA or up to the Eastern Sierras or up north towards San Francisco, all I could think about was when are we going to fish? And so since I was a little guy, I always was into fishing. But kind of growing up in the hood, I guess, fly fishing was not something that I thought I'd ever do. What we would do is in LA, you sit around these little stocked ponds and a bunch of cholos and gangsters, and we're shoulder to shoulder, and you got guys with tuna rods fishing for stocked, 8 to 10 inch rainbow trouts, and so you're doing tuna sets on a rainbow trout, and it's the best thing when you get one in power bait, and so I thought I love it, and I'll do it for life. And then I finally left LA for college, and that was mid '90s, and maybe mid to late '90s, I got introduced to fly fishing, and I thought, man, that's something I want to do. I just need to get time for it. And as I began to stick around Texas, I ended up in West Texas, in Lubbock, Texas, and a guy I worked for, he was an avid fly fisherman, and which is just the ideal situation. So, if we were going to a conference, we were going to fish the whole conference, before the conference and after the conference. And before you knew it, I just could not stop fly fishing, and we still fish together. And
Wow.
here we are 10 years later, 15 years later, or no, 10 years later, I should say. And we still fish. And in fact, he was out here in the Guadalupe a couple times this winter. And yeah, so that's how I got into it. And I've just kind of never looked back. And I love it more today than when I started, man. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's quite the addiction. Now, you'd mentioned the guy that introduced you to it 10 years ago that you still fish together. Why do you think fly fishing brings such a camaraderie between people?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, man. I guess one thing about fly fishing is you're in outdoors. You want to be outside. There's something about it that I don't know what it is. It's just this little thing about the adventurous type person. And I think that kind of naturally you're drawn towards each other. So like me and him, it was like our little secret pleasure. I remember all of our staff that we worked, they would be like, "Oh gosh, here Dusty and Paul are going fishing. We know what they're gonna do. Why is the conference in New Mexico?" Oh, they knew what we were up to, and once it's just kind of contagious, man. And the people that adventurous type, they're kind of drawn out. So that's probably that. And then it's also a communal thing. People that fly fish, they spend, we're out there on the river together. We're hanging out. We got to kind of go on this drive to the water. We got to talk about our flies. We got to talk about it's just one of those things where you like people and you like nature. So I think that's for me, kind of how me and Dusty, why we still fish together.
Yeah, I've talked about my buddy Phil, the accountant, quite a bit in previous episodes, and him and I fish together all the time. And driving to the river and driving back and all that, the whole thing is a beautiful thing. It's not just when we've hooked a fish, but it's the whole
That's right.
thing, and that it's just like you said, it's almost like your little secret. Like we fly fish, no one else does, so they know that we're going out to have a good
Exactly
time,
right, man.
So you got so you got into fly fishing in the mid to late '90s. You were fishing with your boss.
And I should say this: I got into it to the mid to late '90s, but I never really got to really get serious about it till mid 2000s. So when I started working with Dusty, which was towards 2000, I don't know, 10-ish or something, that's when, it really took off. That's when we had time to fish, man. And we fished all, and love it. Number one, West Texas, love it. There's nothing to do.
No, it's not.
So, and everything's 5 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's as dry as can be. So first of all, you're fiending for water. Number two, 5 hours is not far for someone who lives in up. So, you take one for the team and you go as much as you can, man. And that's what we did,
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, I don't know if do you know who Paul Puckett is?
I don't.
Okay, so Paul Puckett, he was on he's a pretty well known artist and fly angler, and you and I actually.
Oh yeah, I think I may have listened to that podcast.
Yeah, so Paul Puckett is just a great guy, and I'm not going to say the name of the college, but you and I went to the same college down in Dallas, and
the Harvard of Dallas. So,
It was definitely not SMU. Let's just put it that way. But
you don't have to say any names.
You don't have to say any names.
People can assume what they're going to assume, Jeff.
Yeah. So, but I worked at a Starbucks down the road from SMU, and there's a fly shop not too far from there, and Paul Puckett worked less than a mile away from me. And I didn't fly fish back then, and I had no idea that there was a fly shop there, but he told me where he worked and stuff, and I looked it up, and I was like, wow, we were so close, and then you and I, we never met in college, but we were so close, it's everything kind of comes together. Yeah. So
yeah, I was really excited when obviously our friend, when he told me he had talked to you, and I go, oh yeah, I remember him. I remember knowing who he was. And then I looked you up and I go, dude, Oh, he's a fly fisherman. I gotta get with this guy. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It's really cool.
And
Now,
then reading your story, it was very similar, like just your passion and all that stuff. Like, exactly. I mean, it's the same thing that draws us out there. You know?
yeah, it's a crazy thing, and I went through some crazy adversities, growing up and in life,
Yeah,
and you did too.
yeah,
So, can you tell
yeah,
us a little bit about? I mean, you overcame brain cancer. What happened?
yeah.
How did you realize that you had that? Can you tell us a little bit about like how you found out you had brain cancer?
Sure, sure, sure. So this was probably maybe 4 years ago. Let's see, it was 2013. So however long ago that was, it was in May of 2013. I was working. Dusty was my boss, the guy I was talking about that I fish with. I mean, he's best friends now. And it was a Monday morning. I was in a counseling session with a guy on Monday morning. I think it was probably 7:30 or 8 in the morning, and I just remember talking to him and then just not knowing what happened, but I just remember falling backwards, wondering what was happening. I thought must have been dying. I didn't know what happened, but it turns out I had a seizure.
Mm.
And my wife is an ER physician. It's Lubbock's it's a couple 100,000 people, but it's a small town. It's isolated. And I remember just waking up and I'm in my wife's ER, and all my friends are around me saying, "Hey man, you just had a seizure," and it's okay. I just like waking up from a dream. And long story short, next they were giving me a CAT scan, and they found a tumor about the size of a golf ball in my on the right side of my brain. And so it was a grade 2 oleodenglioblastoma. And so that was on a Monday, and my wife's birthday was on Thursday, and I think on Thursday, on my wife's birthday, I was having surgery.
Wow.
And so they were, I needed surgery right away, and so they kept me in the hospital all week because the seizure kind of beat me up a little bit, and then they lifted up they opened my brain up and they scraped it out, and then they said, "Man, it looks great. This is awesome. You're gonna need a couple days to heal." And so that was Thursday, I think, and they said by Sunday you should be good to go. And so they said around Sunday around lunch we'll let you out, and everything's looking great. Well, about 1 o'clock, I'm waiting for them to release me, and the surgeon shows up in the room.
Oh no.
He says, "Hey man, we're just looking at your scan, and there's still more. We got to go back in."
Now, before this time,
And
before you had the seizure, Paul, before any of this
yep.
happened, were you having any kind of pain in your head? I mean, were there any like issues that were going on that you didn't really know what it was, or was it just like a complete surprise?
Okay, so I've had a headache since I was, I was a stoner growing up, and so when I was a kid, I always thought it was because I used to back in high school I used to smoke a lot of pot, and so I thought, oh, when I would smoke pot I'd get headaches, but I stopped smoking pot when I was 19. Now fast forward, I'm what, 38 or something,
Uh huh.
and I haven't smoked pot for years and years. But I always thought these headaches were related to when I was a pot smoker, and but I'd get these headaches all the time. And apparently this tumor that I had was a slow growing tumor. They said I could have had it for years and years and years, like up to 20 years even.
Wow.
And it just slowly grows. And the dangerous things about these tumors is when they get to a certain, whatever, how big they get, that's when they metastasize, and everything goes bad from there. So you need to get it soon. And unfortunately, I didn't get it, until it was a golf ball size. And so I get headaches, and then as it was getting closer towards the seizure, I was getting weird sensations. Quick story. The day before I was doing graduate work at the time, and I had a course in Charleston, South Carolina, that I was taking, and I had my family with me, and me. There was a huge storm, but our house was on this beach. I don't know what the beach was. I can't remember what it was. It was somewhere in South Carolina next to Charleston, and a course, all I could think about, I have one day I'm going to get out there. I don't care if it's storming. I'm going to get my fly rod and I'm going to fish. So I took my daughter with me, and she was at the time probably 4 or something, 5. And my wife was inside. She's like, I'm going to try to survive this storm. You better bring our daughter back in alive. And so I'm out waiting in this hurricane-like storm. And anyways, I didn't catch a thing. I think I got like one perch, and somehow me and my daughter made it in. But it just occurred to me just how fortunate I was, because the day before I was standing in a storm with my 4-year-old daughter, holding her hand while we stood in the ocean.
Wow.
But that seizure was just maybe 12 hours later, 14 hours later. Because we got back that sunny night. I fished in the morning, went back that night, and then went back to work on Monday morning, and that's when the seizure happened. But I really didn't have any signs except that I would get headaches, and I'd get these weird sensations of my mouth feeling like it was stuck or something. I can't explain it, but it was a pre seizure sensation, come to find out. And so that Sunday they came, they said we didn't get it all, so they gave me 5 days to rest. I got to go home, which was the hardest 5 days of my life, because all I could think was they're going to open my brain back up. And they were at the time thinking I might lose my left hand, and for sure I'm going to lose the left side of my face. I'm going to lose it. I'm not going to be able to smile on the left side. I'm not going to be able to eat like I used to. I'm going to probably lose my taste. My arm's probably not going to work like it used to. And so that was one of the dangers. And so they gave me an open brain surgery. And it turns out the surgeon was my neighbor, who I hadn't met. He just moved in like the week before.
Wow.
And he was my neighbor, but he had been working in the hospital it turns out with my wife a lot, because she's in the ER. She sends neurological patients to him. Mm-hmm. And so he invited her to be in the surgery with me. So she held my hand and talked to me because I was awake.
They're cutting on your brain and you're awake.
So what they would do is they would peel a layer, and I don't know any of the technical terms, but basically they'd scrape a layer, and then they would ask me to smile, they'd ask me to say something, and they'd have me squeeze their hand.
Oh my gosh.
And they did it for 4 or 5 hours. And so now suddenly I could tell her face was changing, like, what's going on? Something's going on with him. And then they asked the nurse, they said, should we do another layer? And the nurse said, yeah, do it. And my wife said, no, something's changed. And thankfully they stopped. And because they stopped, not only did they get all of it, but I did lose my arm for, maybe a couple months. I lost my hand a little bit, and then I lost the left side of my face, but it, by the grace of God, it all came back, and so it took a year or two for it to come back, but it did. And they were able to get it all. And yeah, so, their hope was, normally with my condition, is 7 to 8 years it usually will stay away. And they warned me that we didn't do any chemo or radiation, but they warned me that it would be in my future. And so so in between that, I took maybe 6 months off of work, and because I was just recovering and doing a lot of evaluating my life, really. Such an experience like that, as you would know, because you've been there. You everything. I mean, I guess all the BS, all the stuff that's there that maybe you haven't dealt with. I felt like it was time to deal with it, and it was time to be honest with myself. And so I felt big changes coming. And so during that time, I went back. I was working in churches at the time, and went back to the church, and we decided we were going to move to LA. I got nostalgic about home and maybe getting around my family, and so once I was good enough, I went back, and with the church that I worked for, we were going to go and plant a church in Los Angeles, and we did. So we went back and to Claremont, which is kind of the eastern part of LA County. And while we were out there, it was just really hard, I thought because I was nostalgic about home, I thought I'd see my parents every day and all my old friends. I thought I could reconnect with them and just let them all know that I love them. And, of course I never saw them.
Right.
I see my parents maybe once a month, and my wife was working back in her kind of hospital she trained in, and she was having a hard time. She's really, I think it was all starting to surface, the trauma to our family from that experience, and like, well, what's next? Is Paul going to be okay? And so after about a year, we decided to pack it up, and we decided we were going to come back to Texas, but I said, if I'm ever going to come back to Texas, I will not go back to West Texas ever. And if I am going to go back to Texas, it's got to be somewhere where there's trout fishing.
Right.
And so, I had my finger on the map on the Guadalupe River. I knew where it was at. I knew all about it. I read all about it. And we stumbled upon this little town named Wimberley, Texas. And, man, just one of the best moves we've ever made. And just the coolest thing, really cool fly fishing culture. Immediately I was, I think we had been out here a week, and I was out there fishing and immediately connecting with people. I connected with our local fly shop, which is Real Fly Fishing, the shop I work for now, and immediately became friends with the owner. And so we had been out here about maybe 2 years, and, I'm having monthly, or every 3 months, I'm still having scans. And about a year and maybe, what are we in? We're in June, so maybe a year and 6 months ago, year and a half ago, I did a scan, and it was back. It was growing again. The tumor was, and so yeah, we had to tap the brakes. I was out here. I was still kind of working, deciding whether I'm not going to go back to churches, or what am I going to do. And all the while I'm fly fishing fervently and obsessively. And my wife gave me the green light to kind of, bucket list all my trips and go here. At the same time, one of my best friends, who's a physician as well, he moved to Idaho Falls. And so I was getting to go fish the snake. I was getting, all, and then suddenly it's back.
Right.
It's back. And the kind of the ground, if anyone who's dealt with cancer knows that when you get that report, the ground drops from beneath you, and it all starts again. And do I have a couple months to live? That's the question I don't really want to ask, but it's there, and so, yeah, they told me right away, so I immediately went to radiation 30 days straight in Austin every day.
Wow.
That's about a 30-minute drive from our house. And then they said at the end of 30 days, you're going to start chemo immediately. And so what they were going to do, as long as I was making some progress, they were going to, I was going to do chemo for a week, a month. And then basically it takes about 3 weeks for it to wear off, and then you start again. And so I was going to do it for 12 months.
Wow.
And so that's what I did. I started I did 30 days of radiation in December of last year. And then at the end of those 30 days, I think the first week of January, I started chemo. And so at this point, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And that is, I wanted to be a really good husband, and I want to be the best dad. And my primary goal in life is to be able to walk my daughter down the aisle one day. And, that's just cycling through my head. And of course, right after that is, I'm going to do something where I can fish full time, fly fish full time. And I should mention also that, my wife's best friend's dad has been a guide up in Montana. He's from Northern California. And, he's the guy who really taught me how to fly fish. And he was a guide up on Madison for 30 years. And he just stopped about 2 years ago. And so he's the guy who first got me wet and thinking about big fish and thinking about, you know, serious, taking fishing seriously. And he's the best guide ever. He'd yell at me, cuss at me, tell me I'm an idiot. He was my kind of guy, man. He reminded me of my grandpa, just mean to me. But he's, you know, it was that we had this drive, which was like, you come on, you got to want this, that kind of thing. And, so I fished with him for years, and when he would let me, you know, he's always mad at me because I wasn't doing it right or something. But yeah. So I went up. Actually, I went on his river in the Madison, and it was. I got up there and I go, you know, this is what I'm going to do. So my wife, as a gift, sent me up to Vail Valley for a week, and that was in May of maybe a year and a half ago or something, maybe 2 years ago. When I was in the middle of my chemo, I just started my chemo, and so while I did what they have, this guide school. And so I did it, and I didn't tell anyone. I didn't think I was going to live for another year.
Wow.
You know, that was the kind of, and so everyone was there just seriously learning about guiding, a bunch of young guys, a few old guys, and I'm right in the middle. And, but I was there. I thought I was going to get to fish all week, you know, and I would get to be alone and just be by myself and be with these guys on the river. Well, they took me in, man. These guys, it was Vail Valley, what is it called? Vail Valley Anglers, maybe. These guys took me in for a week, man. And by the end of that week, I knew, man, I want to guide. I think I would love this. I thought before I just wanted to fish out my bucket list. And so I fished for that week, came home, fighting chemo, and then that summer I just decided, you know, I'm just going to tell my buddy at the fly shop here. I go, I'm going to tell him if you ever need someone to guide, I'd be willing to guide, you know, but that I'm on chemo, and that you know, you probably don't want me now, but if I live, you'll want me then. I think you will.
Did having that out there, that goal and communicating that with a fly shop owner, did that help you in your recovery process? Just having that out there, that goal?
Absolutely. Because I guess I should mention the thing about fly fishing, it's the one thing besides my own personal spiritual practices. It's the one thing that, I mean, it actually is a spiritual practice for me now at this point in my life. But, the one thing that kind of, once I dip my feet in the water, it's quiet. It's the one thing that I no longer think. I'm just doing. Everything else just kind of drifts away.
Yeah.
And it's me, the water, the fish, the bugs, the wind. I can't explain it. It's just something that gives me the chills. It gives me a joy so not only do I want to do that, I want my kids to know that there's this option out there. I want my wife to do it. I want my friends to do it. You know, this hidden gem, man, that's out there. And so yeah, it's kind of that one thing. I'm in the middle of chemo, and so my wife, who's just amazing, would be like, "Go fish for 2 days. Go fish today." And you know, I'd be out there crying sometimes. I'd be visualizing my kids crying that their dad's dying, you know, and by the end of the day, I'd leave there happy. I just caught 5 fish.
Right.
So beautiful. Oh yeah. You know, I had another day, and I get to go hug my kids when I get home and all that kind of stuff. And so I was just out there working it out, and it's still that to me, you know?
Yeah. I can't explain it either. It's spiritual. It's the weirdest thing that, that it does to you. Now, you had mentioned that you had worked in churches. Were you teaching in churches?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you think
teaching?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was gonna say I was teaching. I was sweeping floors, all the above. You know, all that guys that work in churches do. You know.
Yeah.
But teaching is definitely a big part of it.
Because the reason I ask you that, Paul, is it seems like a lot of our guides that have been on the podcast were teachers or love to teach.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of what makes, it seems like that's in the DNA of every great guide, is some background in teaching or communicating, you know, and that's really cool that was the case. What are some of the things that, how did the cancer change you? I mean, I know it's probably hard to put into words and give us all the great details, but if you could tell people that one thing that changed in you, or that you would like them to know, what's that one thing that changed in you the most going through all of this and learning how to fly fish and going through the cancer and just the craziness of your life? It could be like a 5-hour conversation, I'm sure, but what would you say is like one thing that you would want people to know or to take away from our conversation?
Yeah, I think, you know, the one the one thing that I guess this whole experience has caused, it's how, I mean, there's probably, there's just layers of things, but I think the biggest thing is this idea of life and how much of a gift it is.
Yeah.
And so, stewarding that and taking that serious, like, and at the same time, not taking it so serious that you miss it. You miss the beauty of life. And so, actually, that's where fly fishing is so amazing to me, because it's an experiential thing. Like, you have to step in the river,
Right.
and you have to get out there and do it. And so, fly fishing and my experience and cancer, they kind of go hand in hand, because it reminds me about this miracle. And I think since cancer, I never cried before. I was Mr. Tough guy, and so it just made me sensitive again, and made me see what's important in being honest, and being honest with myself, honest about who I am, what I love to do. And I just read an article that said people around 35ish kind of evaluate in their lives, like, are they, what they're doing with their life, does it matter?
Right.
And I'm late in everything. Of course, I'm in the 40s, but I think for me, that's what cancer did for me. It let me be honest with myself and with everyone else about what matters. And like, I could go do this. My boss wants me to do this, or my parents, or my wife, I think everyone wants me to do this. So I'm trying to do that to please everyone. And I realized, you got one shot.
Mm.
What really matters to you? And cancer actually gave me the courage to start living that way, and to make decisions with what really matters. And like I said, for me, it was being a good husband, being a good dad, and doing what I love. It's just fly fishing.
Right.
And, then you start talking about legacy. Like, I would love for my kids, for my family, my friends, I would love for them to do what they love, and to also preserve what we love. And, that's what I want to do as I live, is teach people that, man. And fly fishing is a great way to do that, by the way.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us. If people wanted to get in touch with you for a guide trip or to talk to you,
Yeah.
what's the best way for them to do that, Paul?
Yeah. So if you were to go to www.realfly.net, if you ever wanted to go out on a trip with me, and our trips are mostly winter, you could get a hold of me there at the shop. Also, feel free to find me on Instagram, which is, my hashtag is Paul Tibet, which is weird, and maybe Jeff will put it up there for you to spell that out. But that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. I mean, that's what I got, just Instagram, and then you can get a hold of me at the shop. Again, it's realfly.net, the website.
Okay.
So that's probably the best way.
Well, great. Well, we'll put all those links up on the show notes, and also on our website at remotenopressure.com. And thank you so much, Paul. It was a pleasure talking to you. I had a great time.
Yeah, man, it's been good to catch up, and hopefully it's helpful to someone.
Well, from one Harvard grad to the other, you have a great night. Thanks a lot.
All right, man. Well, get down here and fish with us.
Yes.
I hope to see you this winter.
Well, thank you, Paul, and thank you for joining us on another episode of the Remote and No Pressure Podcast. Be sure to check us out at remotenopressure.com, on all of our social media, Instagram, Facebook, and all that. And until next time, go fishing.